Hello and welcome to Sunday School. Like last Sunday, let's talk about demons. Now, anyway, last night, Constance and I attended just a wonderful, wonderful dinner and a Day of the Dead uh, observance here in Sacramento. And it was just absolutely wonderful. But as you might imagine, Day of the Dead, celebrates the memory of all the ghosts in in our lives, and it's a cheerful thing. If you've ever watched the wonderful Disney animated movie Coco, you get sort of an idea of the wholesomeness of having family altars with pictures of your relatives that have passed on. And there's the old saying that you never die as long as someone is remembering you. Uh, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful evening, and the food was incredible. But anyway, I digress. In keeping with the fact that yesterday, I believe, was National Authors Day, and I shamelessly pitched probably every one of my books uh, in a shameless attempt to get more of you to buy more of my books. Uh, and a couple days before that, I visited with you and talked about, and I encouraged you in my talk to start writing. Well, I'm sort of combining, my goofy train of thought there with those two things, and I started thinking about the ghosts uh, in my life, not really apparitions, but just the living presence of those people in my life that have passed on, but their living presence is still uh, uh, a reality to me, and an important reality, uh, because many of them, perhaps all of them in their own way, are responsible for making who I am, who I am. And two ghosts in my life, been very important in my life. The late Christopher S. Hyatt, who is actually called Dr. Alan Miller, and David P. Wilson, family friend, OTO family friend of the DuQuettes, talented artist, the most talented scryer I've ever encountered, and artist. And the three of us collaborated on a project early in 1991, 1992. And I want to talk about that sort of at the moment. Because here was the project. It's called Aleister Crowley's Illustrated Goetia. Now, a version of it, I believe, is still in print, perhaps on Original Falcon and perhaps even on New Falcon. There are two different publishers that double up on certain publishing projects. And and it came out in 1992. Now you'll recognize that the cover is sort of a version of the Tarot of Ceremonial Magic, Constance and I's Tarot of Ceremonial Magic, which at the time had not been published. And I was hoping to get Alan to publish the tarot deck. It's been that long, and but he didn't like the artwork of it, but he liked that design, so he had David P. Wilson do a version of the design, and that's the cover. And I wrote for I guess it was the fourth edition of it in 19. It came out in 2010. The fourth edition, the fourth printing of it, came out, and I was asked to to add an additional afterword, afterword, afterword to the text. And to tell you the truth, I don't think they ever sent me they didn't send me my copy, after I wrote this introduction or this afterwards. But I am going to share it with you. But just basically, it's Aleister Crowley's Illustrated Goetia. It's sort of a crash course in Solomonic magic, and but it also includes all 72 spirits of the Goetia and the artwork of David Wilson. Now, David Wilson was not only just an artist that took the general description of the classic description of the spirit, but he, in his, before he died, he more or less conjured most, if not all of them, formally conjured them into a triangle and worked with them because he just loved shit like that. Okay, but anyway, if you don't have a copy of Aleister Crowley's Illustrated Goetia, Google around and I'm sure it's available in some edition, whether it's the edition that has my afterword in it or not. It doesn't matter because I'm going to read it to you right now for Sunday school. It's interesting because, a while back I also wrote a book called Ask Baba Lon that dealt with letters that people have written me and my answers back. And there's an element of that because I respond to a kind of a disturbing letter in this too. So if you're all ready, sit back with your coffee. Toast to the dead. Okay, it starts off by saying it was 18 years since the first edition of Aleister Crowley's Illustrated Goetia appeared on the bookstore shelves, but that was back in 2010. So if I was writing this today, I'd say it's been 33 years. The idea was to simply provide a commentary to the Lesser Key of Solomon, an attempt to bring the classic text out of the dusty shadows of Chrysalmuse superstition. Chrysalmuse, Christian, Muslim, and Jew. Okay. The project turned out to be a loud and rollicking collaboration between three very opinionated practicing magicians who love the art of Solomonic magic and the genius of Aleister Crowley. I don't think it occurred to any of us at the time, but we each in our own way had something genuinely unique and valuable to add to the existing store of knowledge concerning this most misunderstood spiritual practice. David Wilson and I showed up 5 days a week at the home of Dr. Christopher Hyatt in Long Beach. Oh, it was a beautiful apartment. I think it was on the 8th or 11th floor of a building, and it overlooked the bay and the oil well islands, which are really quite beautiful in Long Beach. It was a fancy place. Okay. Oh, anyway, I digress. We showed up 5 days a week at the home of Dr. Christopher S. Hyatt in Long Beach. And in a little over 2 months, the three of us took the book from conception to completed manuscript. The doctor and I ensconced ourselves at separate computers at opposite end of the room. Wilson sat on the sofa with his drawing pad. Each morning we assembled at 10 a.m. and mumbled our way through coffee, broke for a light lunch around noon, and promptly, get this, promptly at 4 p.m., turned off the computers and chatted while the good doctor mixed us all double martinis, garnished with a huge garlic stuffed green olive. I have to admit, life was pretty damn sweet. There was never any doubt who was the captain of this magical crew. Hyatt's vision of a popular and easy to understand how-to magical manual consistently redirected David and I toward broader and more adventurous horizons than either of us would have at the time allowed ourselves to venture. This led to some pretty lively martini-time debates over whether or not Goetic spirits live in existence independent of the magician's consciousness. My view was and remains that the entire universe, reality itself, including the collection of forces we call gods, angels, spirits, demons, and ourselves, is an aspect of an expression of consciousness. The magician, indeed every consciousness monad of existence, is a holographic shard of the universal consciousness and contains and reflects the entire spectrum of these hierarchies of spiritual forces. Just as the part of the soul that Kabbalists call the neshama, the soul intuition, is not limited by time or space, so ultimately there is no outside of ourselves. For a god or an angel or a spirit to exist. The neshama explains everything. I would insistently slur over my second double martini. As much as I tried to articulate the fact that my theory allowed that the spirits were simultaneously out there and in here, Wilson was not to be convinced. For him, they were out there, down there, in hell, and they could be objectively summoned, bargained with, and employed like any other labor force or mercenary army. I ended each evening's debate with the same exasperating retort. I agree, David. I believe the same thing. But it's all in your head, too. Wilson was uniquely qualified for the job of illustrating the spirits. He was a talented cartoonist and a passionate magician who delighted in any excuse to conjure a demon into the triangle. Conjuring spirits was, for him, more than any magical exercise. It was, for all intents and purposes, his vocation, his religion. In the years to follow, he would chronically imprint in many of his magical adventures under the pen name S. Jason Black. So if you've got a book by S. Jason Black, it's this guy, David Paul Wilson. His inner eye drew from a rich vocabulary of provocative and colorful images that breathed tension, romance, and danger into every one of his encounters with infernal spirits. Hyatt seemed to delight in listening to David and I go back and forth about the nature of spirits. His observations and comments, always frank, sometimes cruelly cynical, seemingly cunningly designed to provoke us all into a deeper and deeper dimensions of the issue at hand. He quite literally choreographed the project to become a byproduct of a magical group therapy. He quite literally, oh, excuse me, I will never be able to properly express what a privilege it was working with these two brilliant magicians. It's a shame, indeed a tragedy, that both of my old colleagues are now gone. And our work, a labor of love-hate, has become a cenotaph. That's like a monument to somebody's buried someplace else, okay? I take comfort in the fact that our little book remains in print after nearly 2 decades, exceeding. Now it's 33. I believe even Dr. Hyatt, it surpassed even Dr. Hyatt's expectations. I continue to receive letters and emails from magicians from around the world who have read Aleister Crowley's illustrated Goetia and who seek advice about Goetic evocation. I am, in fact, in the process of finishing up a book that is a collection of these letters and my responses to them. I'm excited to be able to present my thoughts and advice in this kind of format because I believe more can be learned about magical theory and technique that can be discussed in the context of a magician's day-to-day challenges than from theoretical pronouncements. I shall end this afterward with one such exchange of emails. I won't use their name, of course. Dear Lon, I was wondering if I could get your assistance on something that I've recently become aware of. I have a friend, just met her recently, that I was considering as a potential magical colleague. That instantly throws up a magical colleague. Who's going to be helping who here? Okay. Anyway, I knew that she was dealing with some great difficulties due to her work, which was part of the reason why I saw potential in her. But as things have come to light, it's becoming more and more clear that she's in a very bad situation. I think I'm supposed to help her because every time I asked her a question about what she had been doing and what was going on, I knew the answer before she told me. I still wonder if I'm out of my league. I'll be cynical here. I said I should have just stopped right there and said, yes, I bet you are. You probably are. He continues. Apparently, she had tried to perform a Goetic evocation. She was attempting to evoke Guisson, but got something else entirely. She has cuts up both arms, and she has gone to the emergency room twice for other reasons. First time the doctor could not figure out what was wrong with her except that her blood count was very high, as in too much blood, I believe. Now they are saying she has kidney stones. Did I tell her to perform the banishing ritual of the pentagram at least every day? Wait, I did tell her to perform the banishing ritual of the pentagram at least every day. But I wonder if that's enough. I was considering performing the supreme banishing ritual of the pentagram for her, but again, I didn't know if that'll be enough. Obviously, this is a very difficult spirit, since it has sent her to the hospital and induced self-harm. So I don't know if there's something more powerful I should be doing. Can you give me your opinion on this? One of the problems I'm facing is that I don't know what spirit I'm dealing with here. She was calling Guisson, but she said that her mind was on about 6 other things when she was doing it. And I think that's where things went wrong. I haven't done any evoking myself, But if I'm not mistaken, Guisan is a very easy spirit to work with, and that clearly it's not the case here. So it could be anyone. Please let me know what you think as soon as you can. Thanks. Dear, what's your name? Wow, sorry to hear this. Hope she can work through this soon. Look, because I think we know each other well enough, I'm going to be candid with you and assume that you will take what I say in the loving spirit which I offer it. First of all, you've not given me enough information to make even a wild evaluation. Cuts, upper arms? Are they self-inflicted? If so, lots of young women, even those who do not dabble in magic, do that. If they're from some unknown cause, it's probably wisest for the time being to let her doctors exhaust their efforts before assuming a magical cause. Emergency room twice for other reasons? What reasons? Please. As Dr. Myers, Dr. Evil might say, throw me a bone here. On second thought, don't. Look, sometimes it's easy to mistake pre-existing pathologies and dramatic expressions of mental illness for magical potential and demonic attack. It is a fact that the practice of magic can exacerbate existing pathologies. I'm not saying that this is absolutely the case here, but I can't count the number of cases I've encountered over the years where people start dabbling with magic because they had mental problems to begin with, rather than developing the mental problems because they practiced magic. Until they address the true source of their problem, trying to cure them through magical means only supports and amplifies the problem. Your concern for her is admirable, and it may be that you can be in a position to magically help her. If you are convinced you are destined to magically ride to the rescue of this damsel in distress, then there's nothing I can say one way or the other to dissuade you from attempting to do so. But magic is a big art form. And more often than not, the real magic is done by seemingly unmagical means, such as simple human contact, love, support, humor, and giving of yourself on a warm and human level. I'll say this, however. If you have doubts as to whether or not you are out of your league in magically dealing with the situations, then chances are very good that you are indeed out of your league. And you can help your friend best by simply being her friend, and not by injecting a mysterious element of magic and superstition into the formula of her recovery. There's another round of these where he seems to justify absolutely everything. Well, more or less saying, well, I totally agree with you, but and I finally end up by saying this. Here I go again. I'm going to be perfectly frank. Put on your thick skin. I think you're missing the biggest and most fundamental big picture as to what Goetic spirits are, and what you can and cannot do with this particular magical technique. I feel that I failed miserably by not communicating this more clearly to you in my published works. For that, I guess I must apologize. I don't know what else to tell you, except I believe you cannot evoke another person's guisson or indeed another person's anything. You can only evoke yours. Didn't I make it clear in Key to Solomon's Key or Aleister Crowley's illustrated Goetia or Tarot of Ceremonial Magic or Angels and Demons and Gods of the New Millennium? Also, one magician's guisson can be a perfectly lovely fellow. That's because his or her guisson, for one reason or another, is already under control. Another person's guisson may be completely out of control and running amok. That guisson will be a very nasty beastie indeed, and very hard to, perhaps even impossible, to bring under control. Here's some practical advice. Something I would do if I were faced with a similar situation. But of course, you are not me, so I can't blame you for ignoring this completely. First of all, do everything you can to get her mind off magical things. Are you a skilled enough magician to do that? Magic talk is just making things worse for her. Perhaps explore with her alternate health issues, nutrition, acupuncture, homeopathy, things that bring in real health professionals. Secondly, do whatever you need to do to become comfortable and justified in your own mind and your own heart with your own motives for getting so deeply and so seriously enmeshed in someone else's nightmarish and perhaps deadly karma. You must be 100% convinced that her issues are your issues, a vital part of your own karma, that her healing is vital to your spiritual well-being. I'm not exaggerating, John. Finally, if you can get into that unshakable frame of mind, then, without her knowing what you are doing, get something. An article of clothing that she'd worn would be perfect. Take it home with you and perform a simple banishing ritual of the pentagram over it. Sprinkle it with clean water. Cense it with the most holy incense you have. Then sit down and have a frank, impromptu conversation with whatever it is contributing to your friend's mental problems. No need to call it guisson. Tell it to get the hell out of her life and stop tormenting her. After your little exorcism chat, banish again and go about your business. Do this twice a day for 2 weeks. For God's sake, don't tell her what you're doing. Don't even hint to what something is being done. Secrecy is one of the magician's most powerful tools. If you do, your efforts will be opening the door wider for the spirit to take her over completely, and you'll be drawn deeper into the nightmare yourself. Well, that's got to be the end of my advice to you on this matter. I have the feeling, however, that you've already made up your mind about what you'd like to do, and that I've just taken a fucking hour out of my life to advise you about something you most probably have to learn for yourself by trial and error, and possibly error. Okay. It may be that you really need to do this. All I really know is that personally, after 35 years of my own trials and errors, I wouldn't go near this chick with a 10-foot Pole. My best, Lon. And that's our Sunday school sermon for today. You know, magic does work, but it works in a way that is far simpler and infinitely more complex at the same time than you can possibly imagine, especially at first. Anyway, that's it for today. I'll see you tomorrow for the order of Monday morning. And until then, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.